safety laws in our country, including universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapons ban.
I come to you, I know, at a time of sorrow in our country, but a time of real determination. We are going to make change. We are going to pass gun safety laws in this country.
AKs, ARs, they have no business in our neighborhoods in peacetime in the United States of America. They are for war zones.
Gun control, of course, has become a big issue on the campaign trail in the wake of the latest spate of mass shootings. Democrats are also hammering the president over immigration, his hateful rhetoric, and of course, healthcare is always a huge issue. Before we get to our next guest, I wanted to show you the latest polling that we have out of the race. Joe Biden is still on top. He's got about 32% support, but Elizabeth Warren has surged. She's now above 20% nationally, and that's for the first time. Bernie Sanders is the only other candidate in double digits, while Kamala Harris has plunged after something of a lackluster debate performance. Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, and Cory Booker are clinging to single-digit poll numbers. Democratic strategist Robin Biro joins us now. He also worked as a regional director on Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, and he was a Hillary Clinton delegate at the 2016 convention. Robin, I'm concerned, and I'm not the only one, that Democrats thus far are fighting the 2020 campaign on turf that's better suited to Trump and the GOP. I was about to add guns to that list because despite the movement we've seen since Dayton and El Paso, guns as an issue always gets pro-gun people to the polls, but gun control doesn't usually get those people to vote. Do you think that's changing?
There's a Quinnipiac poll that showed that about 72% of Americans are in favor of background check reform. That's something that we can all agree on for the most part. Let's look at some of these high capacity magazines. For example, the El Paso shooter had 100-round magazines, 2 of them. If you need 100-round magazines to go hunting, I think you might want to try fishing. Some of those things I think we can agree on, but as far as a gun grab, my party's got to stay away from that.
I get that. I totally do. But the people who are in favor of a background check may or may not vote because they want a background check. But the people who oppose a background check will definitely vote that way, and maybe in greater numbers because of it. Again, can guns be a voting issue? Can gun control be a voting issue for Democrats and people who support gun control?
It can be. We'll turn out Democrat votes, and that's what the primary is all about. So that's why you see these candidates talking these issues right now for the primary. Now, when we head to the general election, it's going to be a different story, of course, Andrew, as you know. And that's where candidates like Amy Klobuchar right now might be the better pick for someone headed to the general, someone that's more centrist and will appeal to somewhere in the middle that's talking more common sense gun reform. But like I said, anything beyond just increased background checks and maybe looking at the magazines, I think it's going to be a win for Trump on gun reform.
And that's what brought me back to this issue perhaps being on Trump's turf, because if guns are a big issue in 2020, we got voters in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. That's where this election is going to be decided. And if the pro-gun voters turn out there, it's a good chance Trump is going to be reelected.
You're exactly correct. And I'm speaking to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a veteran myself. I'm a concealed carry permit holder. So these are issues that Georgians are very concerned about. And this does play right into Trump's hands. That's why we've got to be careful with how we frame this. Look, I talk to my veteran friends all the time, and they fail to remember that under Obama's administration, we didn't ban anything. But under Trump's administration, they forget that we had bump stocks get banned and that he's talking about some of these other things. So my party's got to do a better job, Andrew, of getting out this message that we've got to work on these together and that it's not just us pushing this narrative.
Healthcare is another great example. Of the 20 Democrats we've seen on the debate stages, 16 or 17 of them were basically calling for an end to Obamacare. And of course, many want universal coverage and an end to private insurance. Took years for the numbers on Obamacare to go from negative to positive, and Democrats just don't have that kind of time this go around. How dangerous is this for Democrats?
Andrew, it's extremely dangerous for Democrats, particularly the Democrats who want to do away with private health insurance. And I'm looking right at Elizabeth Warren when I say that. That this is not an issue that's appealing to Iowans. We just saw at their state fair this past weekend. The candidates who are resonating with like Iowans, for example, are the ones like Mayor Pete, who are saying, who are pushing Medicare for all those who want it, and Joe Biden also is saying pretty much that. So if they cross that line into wanting to do away with private health insurance, I just don't think they're going to have the votes for that. Yes, we do have 2/3 support in the House right now for Medicare for all, but we've got to be very careful with how we approach this so that we don't alienate ourselves from the electorate.
That argument that we should get rid of private insurance, the Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, always seems to get such a big reaction at debates or in front of crowds. Is this another issue where this is the primary voters want it and like it, but it's at odds with what will work to beat Trump?
Yes, absolutely. This might work in the primary because it's bold. It's a bold move, but this is a killer for us in the general election. So, some of these things I honestly think are done for press releases, not necessarily for good policy. I think they're meant to generate buzz, which they need to stand out from this crowded field. But I just don't see these ever becoming a policy, Andrew.
And then, Robin, 7 of the Democratic presidents or Democratic candidates for president have called Trump a white supremacist. Others have called him a racist. It's effective at labeling Trump, but doesn't that also label Trump's voters or anyone who's thinking about voting for Trump?
This is where I have a lot of difficulty. I hate that's such a powerful word, an accusation. I don't like when it's thrown around lightly. It's very difficult for me to say that. I have said that before, but I think that these issues, when you launch that accusation, I think that it emboldens Trump's base. I think that's actually working against us. Now, we do have a responsibility to say things exactly as they are. How can anybody run for office without doing that? But this is getting thrown around recklessly, and that's where we're going to see a problem, and I think it's going to come back to bite us.
And it sets up the potential for a weird dynamic. Let's say the Democratic nominee is somebody who's called Trump either a white supremacist or a racist. How do you take the stage next to somebody you think is a racist and debate them on the merits? I mean, in our private lives, you just wouldn't interact with that person.
Exactly. And you're right. We wouldn't do this in our personal lives. It's going to be very difficult. I'm of the mindset that I just don't think that we're going to actually see President Trump debate whoever our Democratic nominee is. I don't think that would benefit him to do so. I think that we're going to see this basically become a Twitter debate. But this is difficult, and we've just got to be careful. These accusations about racism are just losing their effect. It's like the boy who cried wolf.
Finally, Robin, looking at the Democratic field, it's pretty clear that Biden, Warren, Harris, Sanders, and probably Buttigieg are in this for the long haul. Of the rest of the field, who do you think will rise and still be in the race with a chance to win come March or April? Give me a couple of names.
Yeah, sure. Added to that list, Amy Klobuchar just qualified a little more than a week ago, and Andrew Yang also was the last to qualify. So we now have 9 candidates who are qualified. We didn't mention Cory Booker. He's also in there. Hitting that sweet middle spot right now is going to be Amy Klobuchar. That's going to resonate really well with Iowans. Anybody who's rolling out the good plan for rural America right now is going to fare very well. Those are Mayor Pete, Elizabeth Warren, and Amy Klobuchar. Those all have a good, solid plan for rural America. The rest, outside of those 9, I don't think they're gaining any traction. I just analyzed the numbers last week, and it's not looking good for anyone outside of that 9. No one has met even one polling criteria outside of maybe 11 candidates.
Democratic strategist Robin Biro. Robin, great insight. Thanks for a few minutes. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
And up next, the president's spreading a conspiracy theory involving Bill Clinton and murder, the White House rolling back a major environmental protection, and the Trump-Scaramucci feud continues. Just another happy day at the White House.